Your Excellency, President of the General Assembly, Honourable Ministers of Foreign Affairs of Australia and Latvia, Excellencies, fellow colleagues, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning, afternoon and evening to everyone. It's a true honor to welcome all of you to this discussion on countering infodemia. Our virtual meeting is taking place on the eve of the UN General Assembly special session on COVID-19 epidemic. I'm pleased that today we have a truly cross-regional multi-stakeholder participation from Canberra, Jakarta, New Delhi, Riga, Paris, as well as from WHO in Geneva, UN headquarters in New York, and we have also a very important voice from NGO perspective. Today, we intend to focus on sharing national implementation strategies and best practices aimed at countering infodemia. Metaphorically speaking, we will share best experience on vaccine against infodemia. And now I am pleased to introduce the first speaker, President of the 75th session of the General Assembly of the United Nations, Honourable Volkan Bozkir. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Ministers, distinguished delegates, excellencies, thank you for organizing this critical meeting to share best practices on tackling disinformation and misinformation. I think the COVID-19 pandemic has brought untold suffering to millions. It affected not only our health, but our economies too. And it has hit the most vulnerable the hardest. Aside from the virus and its impacts, another adversary has been plaguing our response: misinformation and disinformation. COVID-19 is a communications crisis. It's not simply a pandemic. It is an infodemic, and this has cost lives. Misinformation and disinformation can lead to a lack of diagnostic tests, poor observance of public health measures, and lack of immunization. We have seen the dangers of misinformation before, including in the response to a disease. The coverage of the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine has decreased in some places due to misinformation about the vaccine. Measles has become resurgent. Misinformation has taken us backwards. Trust in institutions is crucial to ensure credible information is acted upon, and people are more likely to turn to less credible alternative sources of information when they do not trust traditional sources. This places a special responsibility on those institutions at local, national, and international levels to act effectively and with integrity. And it supports the need to invest in institutions, including the World Health Organization, to ensure we are best placed to address the virus. In a world where we are continuously bombarded with information, critical judgment is essential to discern the value and credibility of that information. I welcome the steps taken by member states and the multilateral system to combat the infodemic, and the United Nations efforts to counter the scourge of misinformation, stigmatization, and harmful health advice, and strengthen trust in science. I would like to highlight the work of the WHO, UNESCO, and the UN Department of Global Communications, including the Take Care Before You Share, Pledge to Pause, and Verified campaigns, which I hope my UN colleague, Mr. Nasser, will discuss more later. Member states have also seen the need to act. In General Assembly Resolution 74/306 of 11 September, member states expressed concern about the spread of disinformation and propaganda and agreed to take steps to counter the spread of misinformation and disinformation online and offline. This followed the World Health Assembly's resolution on COVID-19 in May and the cross-regional statement on the infodemic in the context of COVID-19 from June. I welcome the organization of this side event to discuss best practices for actions to address the spread of misinformation. Can I pay particular thanks to the Republic of Latvia for its leadership on this issue? Ladies and gentlemen, misinformation and disinformation are not new concepts or new behaviors, but their existence in the context of COVID-19 has sharpened the risks as well as our collective resolve to respond. It is clear that to address this issue, joint efforts by multiple stakeholders, including governments, international organizations, academia, and technology and social media companies are required. Journalists and media workers also have a crucial role in helping the public make informed decisions. Member states must support journalists and media workers so they can do their jobs throughout the pandemic. Excellencies, given recent developments, it is likely that the world will see several viable vaccines for the COVID-19 pandemic in the coming months. However, these welcome advancements will only help us to overcome the pandemic if people have confidence to use them. Building vaccine confidence and countering disinformation is in our collective interest. At the United Nations General Assembly special session on COVID-19, starting tomorrow, member states, the United Nations, and key stakeholders will come together to share experiences and lessons learned from the pandemic, including our experiences countering misinformation. I strongly encourage all stakeholders to continue to work together to address the joint misinformation and disinformation challenge we are facing, not only to combat this pandemic, but for the long-term health of our societies. I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to join you in this very important meeting.
Mr. President, thank you so much for your very strong statement, for your opening remarks, for your continuous support to adoption of Omnibus resolution, and I wish you a very successful chairing of the forthcoming session. Thank you. The next speaker is the Foreign Minister of the Republic of Latvia, Honourable Edgars Rinkēvičs. Mr. Minister, the floor is yours, please.
Well, thank you very much indeed, and Your Excellency, President of the General Assembly there, Volkan. Great to see you, unfortunately from great distance, but I very much hope that after this pandemic we will be able to catch up everything that we have missed in UN work. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the President of General Assembly for your presence and for introductory remarks. I would also like to thank Australia, France, India, and Indonesia for co-hosting this side event together with Latvia, and everyone else for participating. This discussion is necessary considering the number of new daily cases and deaths from COVID-19 virus. Considerable part of the spread of the virus is attributable to disinformation affecting people in every country of the world. Denial of virus, baseless rumors, conspiracy theories, and harmful health advice risk to cause massive damage to public health globally. Infodemic stems from cumulative effect of the deadly pandemic with virtually unlimited circulation of information. Negative effects of disinformation impact all phases of combating COVID-19. Disinformation eases the spread of virus and it hampers vaccination and recovery efforts. Here, governments have a broader role to play apart from curbing COVID itself, fight disinformation association with it. National governments have an essential responsibility to deal with infodemic. Governments must work to keep people safe and informed and to minimize social divisions. Both state and non-state actors must contribute to countering the spread of disinformation. This goes hand in hand with building trust in democratic institutions and among fellow citizens. Support for independent, pluralistic media, advancement of media and information literacy, as well as safeguarding of freedom of expression, are the main pillars of addressing disinformation. Excellencies, dear friends, COVID-19 crisis has tested the resilience and exposed vulnerabilities of our societies. We must share best practices on mitigating the risks posed by COVID-19 related disinformation. Let me highlight how my country has dealt with this challenge. The role of the Latvian media in rooting out misinformation has been just as important as before pandemic. In order to support quality fact-based journalism, the government channeled substantial funding through Independent Media Support Fund. The funding is available for both private and public media. Investigative journalists have successfully exposed and debunked conspiracy theories and false information. An important factor is that timely national measures and the well-coordinated government communication are carried out in close consultation with trusted public health experts. We have managed to sustain an informed and fact-based public conversation on the health aspects, as well as the economic fallout from COVID-19. Our public discourse on COVID-19 has largely been reasonable and fact-based. This has helped us to deal with the health-related and economic consequences of the pandemic so far. It will remain critical for getting through the challenging months still ahead of us. The pandemic has exposed the need for more accountability and transparency on the part of the online platforms. While they are an essential source of information, online platforms have also become a convenient tool for spread of falsehoods and manipulation. Further actions by the online platforms is needed to address disinformation. At the same time, they also must do more to uphold and strengthen freedom of expression and data privacy online. It is essential that efforts to tackle disinformation develop further within international organizations. The United Nations has a unique convening power to bring together all stakeholders, government institutions and international organizations, media, online platforms, and civil society. Latvia welcomed the timely UN response, the UN Secretary General's initiative, Verified, and the Communications Response Initiative. The World Health Organization has been doing important work disseminating factual and science-based information about COVID-19. UNESCO continues promoting media and information literacy and provides resources for media and journalists on tackling disinformation. Latvia is actively involved on those matters through the work of the UNESCO International Programme for the Development of Communications. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this side event is organized as follow-up of the cross-regional statement on infodemic in the context of COVID-19, initiated by Latvia in June. We appreciate very much the overwhelming support of 130 UN member states from all regions who joined this initiative. Latvia has also been actively engaged in the communication campaigns initiated by the UN Department for Global Communications. Governments, international organizations, media organizations, social media companies, scientific community, and pharma companies must continue to work jointly. This mutually reinforcing effort will lead to the following results. First, better manage information now, before vaccine is available to sizable part of population. Second, prepare and carry out equitable vaccination in trustful information environment. And third, recover better after virus recedes. The efforts within the United Nations to tackle disinformation and to advance media and information literacy must be continued. Fighting the infodemic must remain an integral part of our multilateral response to the consequences of COVID-19. I believe that these efforts are an essential part of the broader long-term UN agenda to strengthen good governance, to improve democratic institutions, to foster trust in accountability of governments. With that, I thank you very much for your attention.
Mr. Minister, thank you so much for your strong statement and for sharing Latvian experience on this burning issue. Now I'm honored to give the floor to my dear colleague, Ambassador of Australia, Mitch Fifield, who will introduce the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Australia. Mitch, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Andrejs. And can I firstly acknowledge Latvia's leadership and in particular your great work in this area. President of the General Assembly, it's great to be with you. Any event is always enhanced by your contribution. And it's good to be with ministers and colleagues and broader society. Can I say at the outset that Australia is very pleased to join with Latvia, India, Indonesia and France in co-hosting this event on responding to the infodemic and sharing examples of best practice. Australia is firmly committed to resisting and to countering the spread of misinformation and disinformation. False and misleading information costs lives and it hinders global efforts to defeat COVID-19. As others have said, COVID-19 related misinformation and disinformation causes unacceptable harm. It can undermine public health, the response, it can threaten social cohesion, it can foment violence and conflict. The best antidote to disinformation is producing and promoting accurate, transparent and timely information from credible sources. Australia is working with a range of international partners to combat disinformation and to ensure that people have access to accurate and credible information online. It's now my pleasure to introduce a message from Australia's Minister for Foreign Affairs and Minister for Women, Senator the Honourable Marise Payne, to provide an overview of the actions that Australia is taking to address the infodemic. Thanks very much.
I'm pleased to endorse this event and to thank Latvia for their leadership. 2020 has highlighted the immense power of the digital networks that connect people around the world. Technology has allowed us to keep working, studying and meeting despite the limitations brought about by COVID-19. But those same instantaneous connections have also provided a vector for an infodemic, the deluge of information, some of it confusing, contradictory and harmful, that has accompanied the pandemic. As countries continue to grapple with health and economic challenges, people's access to reliable information is crucial. Australia's response has been consistent with our principles as a liberal democracy with an open and robust public sphere. Across the country, health professionals, the media, community groups and public officials have risen to the challenge of providing clear, accurate and timely information. Our government has encouraged Australians to rely on reputable and authoritative sources to help them make informed choices and keep themselves and their families safe. We have mobilised an ongoing campaign to keep people up to date through digital and traditional media, including in languages other than English, and in Australian Sign Language to ensure access to accurate health advice across our diverse population. We have reached people on public transport, in shopping centres, in doctors' waiting rooms, and on their smartphones. We've also worked with social media companies to take down harmful misinformation, hate speech, and false narratives designed to compromise our response to the pandemic. I commend these companies for the actions they have taken and encourage them to continue to enhance their own policies and systems. Most importantly, we have provided Australians with easy access to sources they can trust. Clear and credible information will also be vital to maximising the take-up of a COVID-19 vaccine at home and abroad. Australia is supporting access to safe, effective and affordable COVID-19 vaccines at the global level through the COVAX facility and in the Indo-Pacific through our $500 million Regional Vaccine Access and Health Security Initiative. And we will work with our international partners to combat misinformation and disinformation, including around the efficacy of vaccinations. COVID-19 has reinforced the critical importance of multilateral cooperation through forums such as this.
I thank the Foreign Minister of Australia for this very important statement, and my dear friend Mitch Fifield for great partnership together. The next speaker is Mr. Samuel Pangirapan, Director General of Application and Informatics, Ministry of Communications and Informatics of Indonesia. Please, sir, the floor is yours.
Honourable President of United Nations General Assembly, His Excellency Volkan Bozkir, Honourable Permanent Representative of Republic of Latvia, His Excellency Andrejs Pildegovičs, Honourable Director of Outreach Division, Department of Global Communication of United Nations, Mr. Maher Nasser, and all distinguished guests and speakers. Allow me to express my highest appreciation for the organizing community of this session for their hard work that enable us to gather here to discuss one of the most prominent issue at the present, which is the infodemic management during COVID-19. Representing Indonesia Ministry Communication and Informatics, I wish to share our experience in combating hoax to countering the infodemic phenomenon. The pandemic of COVID-19 has encouraged us to transform our activity to be more digital-centric and push us to accelerate our existing digital transformation agenda. However, along with the digital transformation process come an issue that need to be addressed immediately, for its side effects are massively affecting our effort to combat the pandemic itself. That particular issue is the rising spread of information disorder during the pandemic, or as we also address as infodemic. Within the spectrum of information disorder, we discover at least 3 common types of information disorder, namely misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. With the assistance of this type of information disorder, there are at least 2 most concerning issues arising out of infodemic phenomenon, namely the incomplete understanding of proper medical situation and procedure by the public, which lead to various problems such as COVID-19 stigmatization of doctor and its survivor, hesitancy to adopt proper medical protocol, until accusation toward hospital maladministration practice. There is also the rising case of financial scam using medical-related motive. For example, the scam of selling medical masks on e-commerce platform. From 23rd of January 2020 to the 1st December of 2020, we have taken down 1,821 COVID-19 related hoax posts from the total of 2,080 hoax posts on social media platform. We believe this effort is the result of strong collaboration with the multiple stakeholders, particularly the partnership that we have with the social media platform provider on combating the infodemic. On countering the infodemic, we aim at 3 levels, namely the upstream, middle stream, and the downstream level. At the upstream level, we focus on digital literacy, where we collaborate with 108 communities, academicians, and government institutions to carry out digital literacy education coordinated by our national digital literacy movement called Cyber Kreasi. At the middle stream level, we focus on collaborating with the tech platform to carry a series of serious and rapid action in removing access to content from website, digital platform, or social media account that circulated false information on COVID-19. Still at middle stream level, we also focus on the technological intervention to combat the pandemic and infodemic. We also have our fully operational contact tracing app called Peduli Lindungi. At downstream level, the ministry supports the law enforcement action to prevent spread of false information that may cause further chaotic situation to the society, in coordinating with the law enforcement body. In this case, we only focus on the vigilant actor who purposely fabricated false and harmful information. Tackling the entire infodemic challenges require approaches that foster sustained behavioral change. Therefore, we put our sole focus on enhancement and improvement of digital literacy of society while promoting the pentahelix approach in the process. This pentahelix approach has been Indonesia's unique way of managing the spread of false information, as we have previously discussed that we have the National Digital Literacy Movement called Cyberkreasi, which gather various kind of stakeholders on digital issue. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, there is no better time to encourage the public to become more digital-centric, diminishing digital disparity and divide, by reinforcing the digital transformation agenda in our respective countries. Let us create more helix by collaborating with various parts of the society while catering to each society uniqueness, both online and offline. Learning from each other best practice on managing the infodemic will be the best action step to do, as collaboration has been one of the integral elements of our mission to combat not only pandemic but also infodemic. With that being said, I just want to re-emphasize that the problem of infodemic is not just the UN or any single government problem. It is our shared problem waiting to be resolved. I'm wishful that our shared vision and strength will navigate us through the pandemic COVID-19 and its infodemic. Thank you for your attention. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay agile. God bless us all.
I thank the distinguished representative of Indonesia for sharing national experience. And the next speaker is Mrs. Nirja Sekhar, Assistant Vice Minister of Ministry of Information and Broadcasting of India. Please, ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you. President of the General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Volkan Bozkir, Foreign Ministers of Australia and Latvia, dignitaries from all the co-sponsoring member states, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you in New York. India is deeply honored to take part in today's high-level event. While the world is battling the COVID-19 pandemic on one side, the challenge of battling the war of infodemic is also consuming substantial efforts of member states. It is important that the issue of infodemic is addressed at the highest level, because we could win the battle against the pandemic, but perhaps fail against the scourge of infodemic if swift and timely collective and responsible action is not taken. This pandemic has been an unprecedented public policy challenge in the domain of healthcare and communication, impacting policymaking in both these arenas immensely. The World Health Organization has defined infodemic as an overabundance of information, both online and offline. It includes deliberate attempts to disseminate wrong information to undermine the public health response. Misinformation and disinformation can be harmful to people's physical and mental health. Increased stigmatization, threaten precious health gains, and lead to poor observance of public health measures, thus reducing their effectiveness in controlling the pandemic. Domestically, India faced a dual information challenge in the wake of the pandemic. On one end of the spectrum here was the urban population, about 400 million, which faced the challenge of rapid spread of misleading and fake information through social media and other smartphone applications. On the other end was the population in rural and remote areas, where last mile communication varied from region to region with multiple regional languages. Secondly, we also noticed that when the pandemic was at its peak in India, the international media published several unverified, baseless, and misleading news and opinion articles regarding India's response to the pandemic. Thirdly, we have also seen that some countries are trying to use the pandemic situation to create disaffection and spread hatred among communities by spreading fake videos and distorting facts and information. The government of India responded to these challenges through swift rejoinders and rebuttals based on science and facts. As far as the communication challenge was concerned, India's Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, took the lead in addressing the nation during the pandemic. At all critical stages, the Prime Minister highlighted the seriousness of the pandemic, its likely impact, and the steps taken by the government to fight the pandemic, thereby building trust in the people at every step. He held important interactions with representatives from electronic and print media, highlighting their crucial role in spreading awareness about the disease, curbing misinformation, and keeping the spirits of the people high through positive communication. Ensuring regular and authentic flow of information has been an important policy component of the Indian response to counter misinformation, fake news, and false narratives. The website of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare was also reconfigured to provide authentic and updated information about statistics, standard operating procedures, and information, education, and communication material related to the pandemic. A fact-check unit specifically to handle the COVID-related communication was set up. This unit received messages from the public, verified the news, and sent back to the representatives the feedback about the news within a defined time frame. The print and the electronic media, both private and the public broadcaster, also covered the fact checks in their daily reports. On the social media front, the government launched a dedicated Twitter handle, ensured live webcast of press conferences, and organized public awareness webinars. The provincial governments also introduced many innovative measures in their communication strategies, such as spreading awareness through briefings by the provincial heads, messaging through municipal bodies, social media campaigns, distribution of FAQs through pamphlets, etc. I would like to utilize this opportunity to emphasize some crucial learnings. Firstly, flow of authentic information is crucial to address misinformation. Secondly, keeping the nation confident with the desired level of trust in the authorities is paramount. Thirdly, communication through the right messengers is critical. Authorities and medical experts should ensure credibility of the message, while celebrities or social media influencers could be involved in taking these messages to the people. In addition to these well-established principles, there are specific lessons as far as tackling disinformation is concerned. Firstly, since disinformation comes in multiple shades, targeted strategies for preparedness and response regarding different forms of disinformation needs to be developed for swifter response in the future. Secondly, there is a need for wider efforts regarding media literacy amongst the people to empower them to respond better to deal with disinformation. Thirdly, there is a need to ensure regular feedback from the people in wake of the flood of information from government and non-government sources. This would help in fine-tuning the evolving infodemic communication strategy based on evidence from the ground. To conclude, engagement with member countries to address misinformation during an infodemic and learning from each other will also go a long way to understand the issues and find suitable solutions to address the concerns. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much, Madam Assistant Vice Minister, for sharing this very valuable experience from India. And now I would like to introduce the next speaker, Mr. Jean-Marc Serret-Charlet, Deputy Director of the Ministry of Europe and Foreign Affairs of France, Department of United Nations, International Organizations, Human Rights, and the Francophonie. Please, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to address a special thanks to Latvia for organizing this event and to India, Indonesia, and Australia for sponsoring. France very much supports this initiative, which is in line with the cross-regional joint statement signed by 132 countries that France contributed to write. We believe it is extremely relevant to hint at the problem of infodemic during this special session dedicated to the COVID-19 pandemic. Indeed, access to reliable, accurate information in times of a pandemic is key to curb the spread of the virus. More broadly, access to information is also a key component of the freedom of expression, which is a cornerstone of democracies. before exposing France's commitment to the fight against infodemic, I think it is crucial to know what we are talking about. Words matter, and I would like to thank the former speaker from India to have made some useful precision. Disinformation is described information that is false and deliberately created harm. Misinformation describes information that is false but not created with the intention of causing harm. Are the overabundance of information, some accurate and some not, that makes it hard for people to find trustworthy sources and reliable guidance when they need it. As a result, the fight against infodemic covers a complex reality. It implies tackling false information that is intentionally or unintentionally spread by individual groups or governments. We believe that one of the key aspects to the fight against infodemics is the promotion of press freedom and pluralism, since journalists are on the front line of fact-checking, verifying news, and spreading spaces, including internet platforms where information is spread. So what have we done so far to fight against infodemics? We did not wait for the pandemic to act. France has launched in September 2019, in the framework of the Alliance for Multilateralism, an initiative called the Partnership on Information and Democracy. It is an intergovernmental pledge signed by 38 countries to promote access to reliable information issued by free and independent media. We are glad that Latvia, India, and Australia expressed their support to this pledge, and we kindly invite, of course, all other countries participating to this side event to do so as well. Additionally to the partnership, 12 NGOs from different continents created the Forum on Information and Democracy to implement on information and democracy and to turn them into real, achievable objectives. This initiative already delivered real, concrete outcome. The forum gathered dozens of international experts from various backgrounds to make recommendations to better address the infodemics. They published 3 weeks ago their first report with 250 recommendations and highlighted especially: first, the need for a new public regulation to impose transparency requirements on online service providers. For instance, transparency requirements or also sanctions for non-compliance. Second, the need for a new model of regulation with regards to content moderation. For instance, platforms should follow a set of human rights principles for content moderation based on international human rights law. Third, the need for new approaches to rethink design of internet platform, for instance, to promote quality journalistic content. And fourth, the need for safeguards when using closed messaging systems like WhatsApp when they become new unregulated public spaces. Those are just few ideas of the 250 recommendations made by the Forum on Information and Democracy. We have the chance to have today with us the president of the forum, Mr. Christophe Deloire. So he will present his work more thoroughly. These proposals are a promising basis for discussion, and we are currently working together with 38 countries of the partnership on ways to follow up on this report to turn the recommendations into concrete actions against infodemic. We need to find ways to give concrete and operational answers to infodemics in a manner that respects our high standards on human rights and public liberties. Let me finish by saying that content regulation is just one part of the problem. As I said, the promotion of press freedom and pluralism is essential to fight against infodemics. Together with the European Union, France is engaged in supporting journalism and press freedom abroad, notably the European Center for Press and Media Freedom, and the European Union Human Rights Defenders Mechanism, which protects legal assistance to defenders, including journalists who are at high risk and facing the most difficult situations worldwide. Not only, but also in our democracies, we do need to promote press freedom and free journalism. Press freedom implies an economic model of journalism that is sustainable. That is why we welcome the announcement by the Forum on Information and Democracy on the launch of a second working group on the sustainability of journalism. We look forward forward reading their recommendations on that topic as well. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Director, for sharing French experience, as well as for, I want to thank for great collaboration with the French colleagues on this important subject. And now I would like to introduce the next speaker, Mr. Christophe Delaroy, Secretary General of Reporters Without Borders and the President of the Partnership on Information Democracy. Very important perspective from the NGO world. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am really pleased to join this conversation and would like to thank the government of Latvia and the other sponsors. As an independent civil society organization, Reporters Without Borders, RSF, has initiated the Initiative on Information Democracy in the fall 2018. Inspired by the vision of a group of Nobel Prize laureates and other prominent figures, the Partnership on Information Democracy defines democratic principles for the global information and communication space. This partnership, signed on the margins of the UN General Assembly last year, has been endorsed now by 38 countries from all continents. To further develop the principles and contribute to their implementation, 11 independent organizations from civil society and the world of research have created the Forum on Information Democracy. The Forum launches working groups to provide governments, parliaments, and stakeholders with concrete options. The Forum's recommendations for regulation will help policymakers to find the appropriate answers to systemic challenges. 3 weeks ago, as previously mentioned, our first working group, focused on infodemics, issued a set of 250 recommendations for the regulation and self-regulation of digital platforms and social networks. No need to come back on the assessment itself. I will just expose the 4 priorities. First, public regulation is needed to impose transparency requirements on online service providers. As an example, transparency requirements should relate to all platforms' core functions in the public information ecosystem: content moderation, content ranking, content targeting, and social influence building. Second, a new model of meta regulation with regards to content moderation is required. Platforms should follow a set of principles based on international human rights law: legality, necessity and proportionality, legitimacy, equality, and non-discrimination. Third, new approaches to the design of platforms have to be initiated. A co-regulatory framework for the promotion of public interest journalistic contents should be defined, based, for instance, on self-regulatory standards such as the Journalism Trust Initiative, JTI. Fourth, safeguards should be established in closed messaging services when those services enter into a public space logic. Measures that limit the virality of misleading content should be implemented through limitations of some functionalities: opt-in features to receive group messages, and measures to combat bulk messaging and automated behavior. With this set of 250 recommendations, concrete recommendations, like raw material for regulation, we provided you, governments, with actionable solutions. Up to you now to implement them, that's to say, to import it into your legal frameworks and promote them on the international stage. We will continue providing you with other policy frameworks in the future about other challenges regarding information and communication in the technological field. There are so many. We just announced indeed, the creation of a working group on the sustainability of journalism, quality journalism. How can you amplify this work? We are at your disposal to cooperate and support you in implementing the recommendations at the national level. At the United Nations level, the Digital Cooperation Roadmap could build upon the principles of the Partnership on Information Democracy. The Forum on Information Democracy itself is ready to be a key partner for the Digital Cooperation Roadmap. For the legitimacy of the roadmap, it will be crucial to base the work of the UN and of member states on recommendations coming from an independent civil society-led body, which allows researchers, legal and tech experts from everywhere to work together. The tech envoy to be appointed should also take, or could also take advantage of the work of the forum to cooperate with civil society and not just with the tech sector. As a final step, I wanted to raise that we can't fight infodemics without securing journalism and reporters' safety. We need a concrete mechanism aiming at implementing UN bodies' resolutions and the UN Action Plan for the Safety of Journalists. To do so, an important coalition is advocating to establish a UN Special Representative for the Safety of Journalists. I discussed it directly with the UN Secretary General early 2017, and he promised that he would enact it. He said he just needed time. With just over a year left in his first term in office, now is the time for concrete action to implement this. Very recently, the high-level panel of legal experts on media freedom endorsed our call for this mandate in their latest report. It's crucial that all member states willing to fight infodemics support this demand. To summarize, we have to work at 3 levels: democratic safeguards in the digital space, the macro level, and at the micro level, first, promotion of a demanding conception of journalism, second, protection of journalists. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Secretary General, for sharing your very valuable, very meaningful recommendations and very important perspective, what we will take into account. The next speaker is Dr. Sylvie Bryan, Director of Global Infectious and Hazards Preparedness Department of World Health Organizations. Madam, please, the floor is yours.
Sorry. Good afternoon, and thank you very much. Ministers, distinguished delegates, guests and speakers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to convey my thanks to the President of the General Assembly and to the countries organizing this event. And thank you also, Latvia, for your leadership on this topic. Many thanks for inviting me to this very important side event for the response to the pandemic COVID-19. I'm very honored to be able to contribute to this panel. At WHO, we talk about an infodemic as an overabundance of information, some accurate and some not, occurring during an epidemic, making it hard for people to find truthworthy sources and reliable guidance when it's most needed. Infodemic is not a new phenomenon. It has existed since epidemics exist. For instance, during Ebola outbreak, there were rumors circulating that Ebola was not real but invented. It undermined significantly the efforts to isolate and treat patients. But what makes this COVID-19 infodemic so special? In the digital age, with broad access to social media, infodemic management is more challenging. Indeed, rumors and fake news are rapidly amplified and spreading further and faster than ever. From January to April 2020, 82% of the early online COVID-19 posts were inaccurate. It's also clear that with new technologies, everyone is an author, an editor, and a disseminator of information, consciously or unconsciously. Have we learned how to do it properly? Not yet. And what is the immediate impact of infodemic? People become more confused and they don't know what to believe and who to trust, and they may adopt unhealthy behavior. And in addition, during pandemic, we are more vulnerable to misinformation because people are already fearful of the disease and the evolution of the event is full of uncertainty. But there are also three major issues with misinformation and disinformation. First, it can kill. People can take harmful drugs while believing it's a miraculous cure for COVID-19. For instance, some people ingested surface disinfectant and hand sanitizer, believing it would protect them from COVID-19. Second, it can undermine the response. People do not adopt the recommending behavior to stop transmission. And first, it fuels mistrust toward institutions, towards the science, the experts, and the health authorities, which in fine undermines social cohesiveness, increases stigma, and widens social rifts. And we all know that trust is absolutely essential for an effective response. The fact is that now we are living in two intertwined worlds, the physical and the digital world, and both spheres are connected. We do have tools and approach to manage infodemic in the physical world, but we have yet to develop better tools and approaches to manage the infodemic in the digital world too. The essential point is that we need to collaborate. No institution, no country can do it alone at the pace required to effectively tackle the infodemic of the 21st century. During the first Infodemic Management Global Conference in April 2020, we developed a list of 50 key actions that can be done to address this threat. And we are working with other UN agencies to have a coordinated approach. On 11 December 2020, next week, there will be a global conference on infodemic management about the whole of society approach. And this conference will include public and private sectors, the world of work, civil society, faith-based organization, media, and scientific community. And this is not an exhaustive list. What WHO has been doing so far? First, we have led the development of a new scientific discipline, the infodemiology. We need to better understand and diagnose the root cause of the infodemic and the factors that contribute to its rapid growth. We brought together many scientists around the world from several disciplines, epidemiology, data science, physics, chemistry, social sciences, to develop a global research agenda that will be published soon. We are also developing a workforce. We have trained 275 infodemic managers from 78 countries to support this work at country level. We are also developing tools for infodemic management, especially online. We are, for instance, calibrating tools to monitor the conversation on COVID-19 on social media and to also monitor the sentiment of the population at a given time. This will help to develop better messaging to timely address ongoing concerns. We have also seen an increase in mis- and disinformation on COVID-19 vaccine. And this is concerning because it may reduce the uptake of the vaccine and limit the impact of COVID-19, but also because it undermines the trust on other vaccines. We have learned from experience that there are three approaches that may help to overcome this very difficult period. First, listen to the people and understand their concern. When people feel heard, they are more likely to contribute and engage in the solution finding. Second, provide regular, transparent, and accurate information on the vaccine to build trust. And third, counter misinformation with good information. Suppressing dissent voices may be counterproductive and fuel anti-vaccination narratives. As our Director General, Dr. Tedros, said on 15 February 2020, at the beginning of this dramatic event, we are not just fighting an epidemic, we are fighting an infodemic. While you can eliminate viruses, we cannot eliminate infodemic. We can just manage it. WHO and other UN agencies are committed to develop tools and approaches to improve our collective capacities to manage infodemic. and make the world safer. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sylvie Bryan, for this very important update on the efforts of WHO. We absolutely support this call for partnership between sister organizations within the UN and with the governments on these efforts. I think we have now we are moving to the question Q&A session, and I'm happy to pass the floor to the first question. Deputy Permanent Representative Ambassador Maria Basov of Spain. And please, colleagues, given the time constraints, limit your remarks to approximately 1 minute, please.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Let me start by thanking you and also the missions of Australia, France, India, and Indonesia for organizing this relevant and very interesting event on Infodemic. I will be very brief. For us, access to accurate and reliable information is a pillar of democracy and democratic societies. Freedom of expression and the access to information are considered in our constitution fundamental rights. However, processes of democratic participation and also, as many other speakers have said, of trust in public institutions are under threat by the deliberate, systematic, and big-scale spread of misinformation and disinformation. In the face of these challenges, Spain co-signed the cross-regional joint statement on tackling infodemic in June, alongside with 132 UN member states and observers. We have also actively engaged in the United Nations verified, Stop the Spread, and Pledge to Pause campaigns, which aim to bring public awareness to this issue. On a national level and within the framework of the Action Plan Against Disinformation of the European Union and the European Democratic Action Plan, Spain has updated its national plan of action against disinformation. We have also created both a national system for the prevention, tracking, warning, follow-up, and response to disinformation, and also a permanent committee on disinformation in order to coordinate all government departments at the operational level. These tools allow for a very necessary joint response domestically and externally at national, EU, and global level. This is what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. The next comment is from Deputy Permanent Representative Ambassador Günther Sauter of Germany. Please.
Mr. Chair, Andrei, thank you very much for pulling off this meeting. Thanks also to Australia, Indonesia, India, and France. I think we should have a side event like this one every week. The issue that we are discussing today is of concrete relevance and importance. It's a threat to our democracies. It's making our efforts within the United Nations more difficult. And it is particularly worrisome in times of COVID, in which disinformation can really damage people's health and take lives. In this situation, we must not be naive about disinformation. This is why the federal government in Germany has taken a series of measures in order to make our system more resilient. We believe that this is something that we can not only achieve at a national level, we need to cooperate internationally. Let me draw your attention to just 3-4 initiatives. First of all, in the framework of the Alliance for Multilateralism, we have created the Partnership for Information and Democracy. France is in the lead on this one. We are cooperating with our partners within the European Union, within the G7, and within NATO to counter disinformation. Education, reliable information, strategic communication, and measures to build up resilience will be crucial in this. The United Nations must play a key role in this. This is particularly relevant and important in times of COVID. So thanks again for drawing everybody's attention to this important fact. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Günther, for your comments, for your support. And the next speaker is Deputy Permanent Representative of Poland, Mariusz Lewicki. Mariusz, please.
Thank you very much, Andrejs. And first of all, let me thank the
Mariusz, connection is not great.
And Poland was pleased.
Yes, please.
Again, I'm so sorry. Okay.
Yes, please. Please proceed.
Okay. So let me appreciate the Latvian leadership on this. And in always from
Mariusz, I'm very sorry. The line is not working appropriately. Could we reconnect you a few minutes later?
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Maybe just in a couple of minutes, if we can establish better line. And may I now give the floor to the representative of the United States Special Advisor, U.S. Delegation, Mrs. Jennifer Barber. Please, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you to all the sponsors for convening this on a critical topic for our shared efforts to fight the global pandemic. The United States remains deeply concerned that information about the COVID-19 virus was not made widely available until the pandemic was raging across the globe. Sadly, the necessary information sharing did not happen in a timely and transparent way, and this dereliction of duty has been absolutely devastating for the entire globe. As we look forward to combat incorrect and malign influence, we would like to stress that countries need to be completely transparent about vaccines and medical countermeasures, as well as steps taken to counter the spread of the disease. Our work on vaccines for COVID-19 has been fully transparent, and we will follow all the usual and stringent American safety and quality protocols to produce countermeasures that the whole world can trust. We hope that other countries will do the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this very important message. The next question is from the Netherlands, Deputy Permanent Representative Ambassador Mark Zellenrad. Please, Mark.
Thank you, Andrei, and thank you to Latvia for your leadership on this issue. Discussing it actually took me back to the beginning of March, when I believe I got about 50 apps in the first 2 weeks of March, all coming from a Stanford doctor, which was forwarded to me, who told me over the app that if I would hold my breath for about 30 seconds, I would know whether or not I would have COVID. And I got it in at least 6 languages, I believe. So I think that is the essence of this infodemic. It is like a virus. It feeds on hosts. It feeds on reproduction. And the R number for the infodemic regularly is much higher than any normal virus would be able to attain. And I think there's 4 particular issues that we need to take into account if we combat this infodemic. We need to identify it quickly first. That means digital tools, fact-checking. Secondly, we need to do it together because it doesn't know any borders. We need to be aware of the responses that internationally we give to these false messages, and they need to be aligned. Thirdly, we need big tech. We need companies, because so much of this spread, whether they want it or not, is coming from their remit. And that is obviously very controversial, as we have seen here in the United States over the last couple of months, but we do need them and we do need to engage with them. And fourthly, people need to be made aware not only of what information is, but how they can identify it, how they can counter it. And in the Netherlands, we've really incorporated it also in our school curriculum at a very young age, where children are confronted with disinformation and are being asked, is this true? Is this not true? How can you find out? What sources can you use in order to identify whether or not this is correct information? And perhaps my question would be to Reporters Without Borders, which I thought Mr. Delors had a really interesting intervention. I would be interested to hear a little bit more about the discussions that they're having with big tech and what they think we also as governments could do to improve the participation of big tech in this important discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mark. We certainly will forward this question a bit later, but now the next speaker is Ambassador Mohammed Edgars of Egypt. Please, Mohammed.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Andreas. Thank you very much. And allow me to thank you and thank all the organizing missions and appreciate the participation of the PGA and foreign ministers and high officials from Latvia, Australia, Indonesia, India, and France, and WHO. I think what we are talking about now in the core of it is the responsibility, to be responsibility and integrity about using the tools of our modern age. Indeed, in times of the COVID-19 pandemic, the spread of the infodemic can be as dangerous to human health and security as the pandemic itself, especially at this digital age. Egypt is concerned with the damage caused by the deliberate creation and circulation of false or manipulated information related to the pandemic. We call on the international community to take steps to counter the spread of such information in an objective manner and with due respect for citizens' freedom of expression as well as public order and safety. And we were glad to join the cross-regional statement on that regard. We remain committed to creating a healthy environment, information environment at the national, regional, and global levels, in which the infodemic is countered by scientific, evidence-based information and facts. We also assert that it is imperative in this regard to promote better international cooperation based on solidarity and goodwill among countries. Maybe I can ask also WHO about their vision on how to further enhance the mechanisms of cooperation between WHO and the member states on the national level in the field of countering misinformation related to the pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for your question and for your participation and for your support to the statement. The next question is from High Representative of Ambassador of Morocco, Omar Hilale. Please, Omar.
Thank you very much, my dear Andrejs. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers of this meeting and congratulate them for their effort in addressing concretely the current infodemic. I would like also to thank the panelists for their informative intervention. As you all know, disinformation and misinformation are unfortunately not new, but the current pandemic has served as a magnifying glass, highlighting all the risk and negative impact they can lead to. Indeed, the verified campaign spread by the Department of Global Communication, and here I'm talking also as the president of the Committee of Information, is already a success. The World Health Organization campaign stopped the spread, as well as indeed the WHO is used to deal with infodemic. The difference with this time is that the scale and spread with such misinformation is shared, which required a new approach, as mentioned by WHO representative earlier. Governments around the world are also taking this issue seriously, and many have taken decisive steps to counter information. From a national perspective, Morocco is taking the current infodemic very seriously and is spreading non-effort to mitigate its negative impact. At the very beginning of the pandemic in March, Moroccan Parliament adopted the new law to counter misinformation on social media. Also, Morocco will be one of the first, if not the first country after UK this morning, that's good news, in the world to launch a global national vaccine campaign to the benefit of all Moroccans as well as foreign residents, including legal and illegal migrants. All the costs will be borne by the government. In the preparation phase, Beyond the logistic aspect, national authorities have to lead with the flow of misinformation around the vaccination campaign by launching massive information operation to reassure the population by sharing scientific-based facts and information. From personal perspective, as well as in my capacity of chair of the Committee on Information of the UN, the Bureau was able to organize the last session in early September with the decisive support of the DGC, DGCM, and of all the members of the committee. It was indeed crucial given the current context that the committee could meet and adopt its annual resolution, which provide critical guidance to the DGC. I was pleased to chair this committee at a time where unfortunate circumstances allowed to highlight the importance of the Committee on Information and of the DGC mandate. Last but not least, NGO, academicians, and religious leaders have also an important role to play. I was personally impressed to learn about the numerous fact-checking initiatives that exist, including in Africa, Anglophone countries of the continent took the lead on this, but Francophone and other African countries are rapidly bridging the gap. I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Andrejs, a good friend.
Thank you so much, Omar, for your contribution, for your statement, and for your support within ECOSOC as well. I would like to give the floor again to Mariusz Lewicki from Poland. Mariusz, please.
Andrejs, I hope that now you can hear me well.
Absolutely,
and,
please, Mariusz.
Bregman, you can hear my son's apologies. So very briefly, we
Mariusz, connection is not working properly. Can you do something?
Listen, Andrejs. So now I will be brief. So it doesn't work, right?
No. Please
so,
proceed.
First, okay. So.
Can you remove your picture so maybe the sound will be better?
Okay. Right now, yeah.
Yes.
Is it better?
Yes, please.
Right now?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So the concept of disinformation is not a new one. It did exist 10, 30 or 40, 50 years ago. But what is new is the way disinformation is spreading. And as how it could spread is interconnected applies to disinformation, which brings us to the conclusion that no country alone could address effectively disinformation. It would require a strengthened cooperation by the international community, by the UN. So this is why we welcome your initiative. We welcome the Secretary General initiative. The second point is that safe and raised by Minister of Latvia, and it is a kind of challenge how to balance this fight against disinformation with safeguarding the freedom of expression, because we do believe that the most effective way of fighting disinformation is to ensure the open and free society, is to ensure safeguard the freedom of expression. The third point, and it was highlighted, if I'm not wrong, by Mark, is the education. And we know that we need to wash out, that we need distances. So, for instance,
Well, Mariusz, thank you so much. I think we heard you. And thank you for your support. I think we have exhausted. Thank you, Mariusz. We have exhausted the list of comments from the audience. Now I would like to give back the microphone to the representative of the Reporters Without Borders. Could you comment on the question from the Netherlands?
Sorry. Yeah, thank you so much for your question. In fact, the Forum on Information Democracy, as I mentioned, is civil society led. That's to say that it's not pure multi-stakeholderism, because we considered that if we want to make appropriate work, we have to work with people, mostly with people that are independent from platforms. So the working groups have rules, and the majority of them are composed by people that do not have any conflicts of interest with platforms. But of course, the recommendations are also addressed to platforms, because some of them are about self-regulation. And it's also good to know what platforms have in mind regarding regulation. And we will organize meetings with them, and we want also meetings to be organized, of course, with governments, like the equivalent of conferences of parties, to be able to discuss this so that all elements are gathered by parliaments, governments before making decisions.
Thank you so much. May I ask Dr. Brian to comment on the question from Egypt about the enhancement of our strategies?
Yeah, thanks a lot for this question. So what we plan to do is first to work with collaboration of our WHO regional offices and also country offices when they exist, to have a 3-level coordination within WHO and making sure we are supporting countries adequately, and organize also regional forum for discussion, because the situation of infodemic is slightly different in different regions in the world. So we want to have a contextualized action actually for the coming months. Secondly, we will also strengthen the coordination with the other UN agencies at global level, but also at regional level and country level, making sure that we can leverage on our capacities and complement each other so that we can better support. And we will use also all the UN platforms that are available, especially in humanitarian settings, to make sure that we are well coordinated. And thirdly, I mean, to support also this collaboration between countries, we will organize, of course, ad hoc global forums where countries can come and share experience. We did this already at the previous UN General Assembly with a side event, but we will, of course, repeat this initiative and make sure we can provide a space for countries to share experience and also to coordinate approaches. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brian. May I give the floor to the Vice Minister for India? Would you like to say a few concluding remarks on the discussion, or any comments?
Thank you, and it has been a very informative and interactive session, in the sense that this is a common challenge that we all have faced in our own ways in all parts of the world, and technology and the digital platforms have thrown up new challenges, which we will have to face together, because the big companies, the large digital platforms, these are, as Dr. Sylvie said, that everybody is an author and everybody is a listener and everybody is a user. So these are the challenges that have thrown up and have been thrown up, and we are ready to face the challenges, and because so far as the journalists are concerned, there are code of ethics. But when there are other users or content generators, there are no code of ethics. So this is something that we are going to face in the coming times, and we are preparing ourselves. And I think with sharing of experiences with other countries, we'll be able to handle this challenge of technology as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Vice Minister. May I give the floor back to Deputy Director from the French Foreign Ministry? Would you like to add any word on our discussion?
Yes, thank you very much. It was a very useful discussion. What I keep in mind is that we have to work more closely together, because we are like-minded and feel we have to do a thorough work together. And we have to also, and mainly, and thanks to the help of especially some NGOs and Reporters Sans Frontières, it's important we carry on and we put forward some very reasonable and effective measures in order to fight concretely against infodemic. And from that, we will have to do important work of convincing other partners, other states, work, because we feel we've got a good basis to start, but we need to enlarge our efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mitch, would you like to say any word on this discussion from Australian perspective?
No, thanks, Andrejs, and try stopping a former Australian communications minister from talking on this subject, but I'll be brief. Look, I mean, we're talking about misinformation, disinformation, malign messaging. It doesn't really matter what we call it. It's really a continuum of bad, ranging from information that's there because of neglect through to malign intent. But regardless of the intent, the effect is the same, and we've canvassed it comprehensively, the division it fosters, how much harder it makes the work of public health officials, and ultimately the costing of lives. And the antidote, we know what it is. It's accurate information, it's timely information, it's from credible sources. And one of the underpinnings of accurate, timely, credible information is in each of our countries having vigorous and healthy domestic media. And one of the things that we've done in Australia is to reform our media laws and regulations to create an environment that's more conducive to having sustainable traditional media platforms of print, radio and TV. And they're important because they typically have curated information and editorial standards. So that's one thing we can do domestically. And I think, as our minister touched on, misinformation on social media platforms, when we see it, we've got to go to those social media platforms and say, hey, this is wrong. You have terms and conditions. Please apply them. They have the technology to do so. They can target us with ads. So they have the technology to actually find this information on the platforms and remove it. But terrific discussion. Thanks indeed, Andrejs.
Thank you so much, Mitch. Very important points. Dear colleagues, I think discussion has been really rich, and now I would like to give the floor to dear friend, good colleague from UN, Dr. Mahir Nasser, Director of Outreach Division, Department of Global Communications. Please, Mahir, the floor is yours now.
Thank you, Andrejs. And I'd like to start by thanking the Permanent Mission of Latvia, Australia, France, India, Indonesia, of course, for co-sponsoring this event with you. Great thanks as well to His Excellency, the President of General Assembly, Mr. Volkan, Bozkir, and the foreign ministers of Latvia, Australia, and all the distinguished speakers from India, from France, and as well as Indonesia. As the pandemic started, of course, we recognized at the beginning of the year that when there is a vacuum of information, that information needs to be filled. And it is filled with information that is correct, but also with much of misinformation. The UN recognized, and the Secretary General asked the department and Minister Fleming, the USG, to to flood the internet with science-based facts and solutions. And that was the birth of Verify, the campaign that we launched. And we're very grateful to all of you, especially Mission of Latvia, for leading the event of the cross-regional statement, 132 signatories. And that was very helpful for us in getting legitimacy for the campaign and to engage with partners outside of the United Nations and within the United Nations, that this has the support of a large number of membership of the organization. What we started to do was, first of all, revamp the website and dedicate and create a page that is fully on COVID with information that is relied on WHO from health side and from other sources within the UN, that becomes the #1 page where we had that resource. We also addressed internal communications, managed to do multiple sessions to the staff of the organization so that we ourselves are informed of how to protect ourselves, how to deal with information, misinformation. The campaign that Verified, once we launched it in cooperation with Purpose, social media company specialized in creating content that is more engaging, that is more beyond the norm of what we produce in the form of reports and press releases and press conferences. The engagement went to create a website, Verified, shareverified.com, that called on people to sign up to become information volunteers, because we recognize that everybody needs to be involved in this one. Up to now, we have more than 80,000 people across the world who have signed up to be information volunteers. They receive regular emails in multiple languages. We created the website, and because we recognize that also to communicate globally, we have to communicate in languages that people understand and to reach them in places where they are. The website was one part of the campaign. We have been also collaborating with multiple media organizations, multi-choice across Africa, regular radio and television, and where we have strong UN information centers, we have relied on them to also create and work with partners in those countries. We have reached, in the first Take Care Before You Share campaign, we have managed to reach over 700 million people. The pledge to pause in October reached a similar number, and I think we're very grateful to all the permanent missions and capitals that participated in those campaigns and helped us push the dial in terms of changing behavior. And I was very pleased to hear many of the speakers speak about the importance of digital literacy and the importance of dealing the issue of how to change behavior. And that is some of the core of what we have tried to do in the Verified campaign. It is based on science that social media and sharing is something that we all do. We like to share some good news. We like to share some shocking news, sometimes anger, sometimes fear. Just we see something before even spending time to study it, we click. And the digital has made it so easy to share. And I think that's the danger with the infodemic and a pandemic at the time of digital media. There's a big responsibility on the platforms themselves. We recognize that, and we have been engaging and we continue to engage with the major platforms. And I think what I heard also about the need from governments and regulation, I think is warranted. And I think that's something that needs to include them as part of the solution. But until that is established, we could not wait. And that's why behavior change is key. Research has shown if you interrupt the moment between seeing the headline and clicking the share button and apply critical thinking, and we have created content that was easily shared to help people recognize misinformation, help them deal with it in a way that stops the spread of disinformation. At this stage of the pandemic, and with the great news of the vaccine, we recognize that the next battle is the battle about countering vaccine hesitancy. And I think vaccine hesitancy is the second impact of the misinformation, disinformation. People are in multiple surveys that we have seen. In some countries, we see that more than half of the population is not willing to take the vaccine. And that is very, very dangerous. So the campaign that we are now working on collaboratively with WHO and other UN agencies and across the system with partners beyond is based on two items. One is reducing the number of vaccine hesitant people by increasing the volume and reach of persuasive pro-science, pro-vaccine content. And the second one, increasing support for the COVAX Act Accelerator and the concept of people's vaccine, free and available to all, because a vaccine that is not available to every person on the planet, no matter whether they can afford it or not, is not going to end the pandemic. Many speakers spoke about the importance of collaboration, that this is not an issue for one country or one organization. This is something that we need to combat and work on together. And I'm very grateful to the Permanent Mission of Latvia and all the co-sponsors for organizing this event and for the support that you have shown the Department of Global Communications in the campaign, because without your support, we would be a lone voice in the wilderness. And I think we're heartwarming to see this side event ahead of the event tomorrow. And I think we look forward to continue with working with all of you to maintain this and now at the next stage, fighting vaccine hesitancy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mahir, for this very important message and for great collaboration. And I also want to thank also Melissa Fleming for great partnership, what we have had over the last few months. Our discussion is about to be concluded. I think it has been a quite rich exchange of cross-regional perspective on this very important subject. I think we understand that we have to concentrate all our efforts to contain the pandemic and also to contain the infodemic. And I think metaphorically speaking, we have exchanged some ideas about vaccination, about infodemic. And I will not repeat everything, but certainly I take away that we have to do more on information and media literacy. We very much partner together in UNESCO, in ITU, with Global Pulse, with OECD, European Union, but more efforts should be concentrated in this regard. We certainly will have to support media, online, offline. We'll have to deal with the languages, a very important subject. Of course, we do a lot on 6 UN languages. We do on big languages, but low density languages certainly is a big concern, and Latvia is happy to share experience in this regard. And of course, social media platforms. Of course, we live in a digital world, and a lot will have to be done on transparency, on fact-checking, and on privacy protection, etc. I take the suggestion from Germany seriously that we have to do such events more regularly. Maybe not every week, but certainly we will continue working on that. And I count on your support, and thank you for your participation. Thank you, everyone, for contributing to this rich discussion. Thank you, and have a good day.
Great work, Andrejs.
Thank you.
Thanks,
bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.